Now, my greatest challenge was what occurred when I came out of office. I was asked to resign by the governor, and my challenge there was not having his full support, where I gave him 100% of my loyalty, even though we didn't know each other prior to running, and he had his issues with HCA and Medicaid fraud. I never asked him a question about that. Never.
So like a good soldier, you just followed suit.
Exactly. And figure in the military, you have a commanding officer and executive officer. That's your right-hand person. I was not his right-hand person. His chief of staff was his right-hand person, and I was just secondary and just in the way, so to speak. But I still stayed as a team player. I still followed their rules and so forth. And when it came time that I would have expected him to give me the common courtesy that he gave to his male counterparts there as his chiefs of staff, who have had wrongdoings, he supported and defended them. Me with no wrongdoing utilized an excuse to ask me to leave office for no reason.
What happened to your Trini blood, Gail?
Well, you know what?
That's when you should have said, you know what, wait a second, I'm standing up for myself.
Yeah, and you're very right about that. But when you're in the moment, you're not, and you're trying to be that team player, you're trying to not make waves, and is that enough, particularly for a minority, when you are in the good old boy system, you're trying to walk that fine line because you know there are little whispers that they give. You know, if you go off too much, then you're known as a bitch. If you don't do enough, then you're a wimp. If you're trying to walk that balancing act.
It's women. You know, I think as women, we face challenges all the time when we're in tough positions like that too.
And you have no one to really turn to.
Yeah.
When you're on
it's
the
lonely
top,
on the top, especially for women, I think. Because you have no one to trust, no one to turn to.
Exactly, because the same people that you think that you can trust are the ones that are stabbing you in the back. So you have nowhere. You're kind of locked in. And then, too, it wasn't easy working in the office because there were things going on behind the scenes where they were making it very challenging to feel comfortable working there.
Well, I know our listeners here on AM 1300 are listening, and those who are tuning on the web, we're speaking with the former Lieutenant Governor, Jennifer Carroll, who happens to be my personal friend. We're fellow Trinidadians, and we're both U.S. citizens that came to this great country, took the opportunity, and we're giving back in our own way here to the great state of Florida and the nation. And Jennifer, I know that there were some disappointments as well. Other than what you just talked about, anything in particular stands up in your mind that in hindsight, you could say, well, I could have changed that. Besides when you were asked to leave, I'm sure there were other areas that you said maybe something to do for women's rights, education, anything in those lines.
Well, I know in some areas where I put my foot down, and one was certainly in the first year when the budget came out, and several minority programs were on the chopping block. You had HBCUs, the funding for the historical black colleges were on the veto block. You had some programs that was geared towards getting minorities in positions of engineering and CPAs that for years the dollars have gone on to help reduce the gap there, and those things were on the chopping block. You had a pharmacy school that was coming up in an area that was a rural area and in need,